3, 2. Good evening, everyone. Dr. James Lyons-Weiler here, coming to you live from the WWDNYK studios in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There's a lot going on these days with coronavirus, COVID-19. People are on lockdown. In the meantime, China seems to be on the recovery. Doctors and nurses are taking their masks off and seeing patients. South Korea has accurate testing, and with that accurate testing means that they're chasing down the people who have real infections, and they can more wisely use the resources and more efficiently use the resources that they do have to take care of this infection. Today's date is 3/16/2020. And, once in a while, you travel on this great earth, you meet someone who really moves your heart, who really opens up your minds and can say things and communicate things in such a manner that they speak with such undeniable truth. And that comes, I think, from a purity of innocence, of wanting to will the world into a better place. And so I'm really excited to share this Unbreaking Science with a friend of mine from Canada. Her name is Diane Doucet. Welcome, Diane. Thanks for being on the show.
I'm honored to be on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take a moment here and I'm going to read your biography, okay? So Diane Doucet lives along the Bay of de Chaleur in the village of Negadu in New Brunswick, Canada. She's an artist, a painter, a poet, a mother, and an activist who believes in freedom of choice, personal liberty, and human freedom from bondage. She believes in supporting local businesses and values the idea of communities creating their own destinies. She does not believe in the centralization of power, as this robs the people of their ability to steer their own communities. Medical freedom of choice is near and dear to her heart, as is the accountability of big corporations who negatively affect the health, freedoms, and well-being of people and the environmental wellness of the planet they live on. She is pro-peace, pro-humans, pro-animals, and pro-environment. She does not support the idea of mass surveillance and invasive technologies. Her deepest wish is that one day a better world will be built, one built on peace, prosperity, freedom, and respect for all. That's Diane for you. So let's talk about, how did you get started? What woke you up? How long have you been this wonderful person who's concerned about the well-being of your fellow human beings? Earliest memory of really caring.
Before I answer your question, I just want to somebody just wrote to say that they can't hear me. Is it a second?
I hear you just fine. So.
You hear me? Okay, great. Okay. I've always been a person that values freedom, but in the last decade, I've noticed that there's been a gradual progression of centralization of power, more and more emphasis put on security versus liberty, and we've seen it across the board in all aspects of our lives, and all the technological advances that we've witnessed have also walked in step with being more and more surveilled and everything being tracked. And the more technologically advanced we are, the more we walk ourselves into a cage. And that's something that I always found to be concerning. Since 9/11, it seems that our country has turned into a darker road. And when we've seen the march towards mandatory vaccinations, that's when I felt compelled that I had no choice. I'm usually a very quiet person that keeps to myself and does my thing. I'm quite shy, but I felt I had no choice. I had to step out there and speak out. even though I knew that I'd be walking into a minefield. It's a very controversial subject, and it's one where you don't get roses thrown your way by a lot of people. You get the opposite.
That's a touching thought. So when you have so much going on in this world around you, you in your bio, you encompass so many things. So how do we break this down? People in the United States understand state politics, but they don't understand provincial politics. I don't think people in the United States really have a good handle on the vastness of the differences, the beautiful cultures that live and exist in Canada. And I don't like to emphasize differences among peoples of any kind, but there's a natural stress and a tendency, people that are of the same race, I guess I should say, that have such pronounced differences in the languages and things like that. That if you grow up in Canada and you're primarily English speaking, you have a different view of the world than if you grew up in the United States or primarily English speaking, unless you're I guess if you're in Southwestern America, where you have a lot of Latinos and more of Hispanic influence. But your care and consideration, is that driven by any particular events young in your life, or any biases that happened to that you witnessed?
I grew up in a very rural community. I am a French Canadian. English is my French language. And we are Acadians, where I come from. And we have deep roots family. We're a culture that's very family-oriented with our traditions. And I find that in the last years, there's been such a drastic change that it's changing our communities, and the world that was is no longer, and it makes me nostalgic at times. It makes me sad that sometimes we're willing to put our humanity aside in order to make ourselves feel more secure. It's a new mentality, and I like the small town, the villages, how people are know each other, knowing your neighbors, standing up for one another. I live in a place where there's English and French. We're all mixed together.
That's right.
The Aborigines. We get along. We're there for each other. It's something that's deeply rooted in our hearts here, and I don't want to see that go away.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town too, and there's something that was pointed out to me. When you're in a small town, you tend to feel like you have a little bit more influence on things around you, I suppose, and you might be able to have more reason to expect, whether it's warranted or not, that you might be able to influence the world around you, whether it's politically or socially, and as opposed to growing up in a huge city where it's just a whitewash of information and people, and how do you sort things out? So if we grow up in small towns, then we kind of see how systems work, and we learn a little bit by listening to our elders and reading the newspaper about what's real and what's bunk. So I remember coming. I remember coming to your beautiful country to educate legislators in New Brunswick, and one of the most.
Cut you off, Jimmy?
What's that?
May I cut you off? Somebody just told me that they can't hear me at all.
They can't hear you at all?
No.
Oh, I don't know why the sound is not coming through. Okay, let's cut it off.